like the nights she cried alone on the bathroom floor, the gut punch of humiliation in a crowded room, the precise moment when love curdled into shame. So she made a decision, cold and calm as a surgeon's blade. "If I survived you," she told the ghost of her former self, "then you will survive me." And so, the punishment began. She spent his money without apology, watching numbers drain with a numb satisfaction. After all, didn't he spend her trust the same way? Lavishly, carelessly? She refused to work, claiming the world had nothing for her. Didn't he make her feel useless once? Worthless? When her anger sharpened into a point and she raised her hand, he never fought back. He never even flinched away, because every slap, every cruel word sounded to him like a grim reminder: you are the architect of this. You built this hell. Live in it. And he accepted it all, because the thought of letting go of her, of walking away from the last shred of them, felt infinitely worse than the pain of staying. Then his mother came to visit, a woman woven from tradition, a woman who believed love should be a soft blanket and marriage a cradle for children. She noticed it immediately, the way her son's shoulders tightened at the sound of her wife's footsteps.
They said the drum only spoke the truth. They said no man should ever play it for pride. But Adesala believed talent made him special, and so he played. In a small village where the earth was red as rust and the palm trees whispered stories to the wind, there lived a young man named Adesala. He was known for his hands that could coax music from wood and skin as though they were extensions of his soul. When he touched a drum, children stopped running mid-chase, elders leaned closer on their walking sticks, and even the night insects seemed to pause in their symphony. His music was more than sound, it was a language, one that could make hearts soar, tears fall, or spirits dance. From festival to festival, Adesala's name traveled far beyond the village paths. Merchants from neighboring towns spoke of him in hushed, reverent tones, travelers carried tales of his rhythms to distant cities, and every word of praise fed a growing pride that Adesala barely noticed. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in crimson and gold, the village elder, Boba Olimide, called Adesala aside. His face was a map of years lived in patience and wisdom. "Talent, Adesala," he said, voice as gentle as the evening breeze, "is a loan, not a possession. The world will give you hands that can play, but it will take them back if pride rules them. Never let your music make you greater than the truths it carries." Adesala smiled, a hint of amusement curling his lips, and bowed slightly. But inside, his heart thumped with quiet defiance. His hands were magic. His skill was unmatched. How could mere pride undo what destiny had given him? That night, the village slept under a blanket of stars, and the crickets hummed their lullabies. But Adesala did not sleep. A sound called to him, a rhythm deep, ancient, and pulsing with life. It came from the forest, far beyond where lanterns could light the path. Compelled by curiosity, and perhaps a whisper of hubris, he walked through the tangled undergrowth, past towering palms and whispering leaves, until he reached a clearing. There, bathed in moonlight, rested a drum unlike any he had ever seen. Its wood was dark as the night itself, its skin stretched taut, and it hummed with an energy that seemed to breathe. A voice, soft as the wind rustling through the palms, whispered, "Play with humility, or not at all." Adesala laughed softly. Humility was for those who lacked talent. He raised his hands and struck the drum. The sound that erupted was not merely music, it was the voice of the earth itself. The drum spoke forgotten truths, revealed hidden histories, and named heroes long buried by time. People no longer listened to Adesala for music alone, they listened for truth. And as they listened, Adesala began to feel a heady intoxication. The truth seemed to belong to him, a treasure he could bend, shape, and wield. He twisted the drum's voice to elevate himself. In rhythm, he mocked elders, rewrote stories, and reshaped history to his favor. The drum vibrated beneath his hands as if warning him, but pride was a storm that could not be calmed. His fame spread beyond the village. People traveled from distant towns, bringing offerings and coins just to witness the magic of the drum and the man who controlled it. Adesela reveled in their admiration, laughter rolling from his lips like thunder. But pride is a fragile thing. During the greatest festival of the year, under a canopy of countless torches and a sky full of stars, Adesela took center stage. The air hummed with anticipation. He raised his hands and played with unmatched skill, weaving intricate rhythms that dazzled the eyes and ears. Yet the drum, ancient and wise, refused to obey. Its voice cut sharply, exposing every falsehood, every manipulation, every lie he had hidden beneath his music. The crowd fell silent. The elders' eyes filled with sorrow. Adesela froze, trembling as if the drum itself had reached inside his chest. "Stop, stop speaking," he whispered, voice cracking. But the drum answered only in truth. Truth cannot be silenced. A sharp crack split the night. The drum broke, its skin tearing, its voice fading. Silence swallowed the festival. The crowd looked on, stunned. Adesela fell to his knees, shame and despair sinking like stones into his heart. For the first time, the village did not applaud. For the first time, the hands that had brought him praise felt heavy with regret. Days passed. Adesela wandered the village quietly, his music reduced to ordinary drums, played not for fame, but for peace. He tended his garden, helped elders, and listened to the laughter of children without seeking notice. He learned slowly, painfully, that when talent is ruled by pride, it becomes a curse rather than a gift. But the fire in his heart, though humbled, did not die. One evening, while polishing his modest drum, Adesela closed his eyes and remembered the ancient drum in the forest. He remembered the voice, the power, and the lessons it had tried to teach. And he realized something vital: mistakes did not define him, but choices could. He stood, feeling the rhythm of the earth beneath his feet. He would start again, not for fame, not for praise, but for truth and humility. Slowly, deliberately, he lifted his hands and played. The notes were quiet at first, imperfect, but honest. And as they drifted across the red soil of the village, the wind seemed to carry a whisper: "This is the beginning, Adesela. Play with humility, and listen." And so he did. If this story moved you, let it speak again. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share the rhythm with someone who needs the reminder. More stories await, stories of truth, pride, wisdom, and second chances.
Two twins, Alex and Jordan, grew up in a busy city. Alex was outgoing, loved sports, and was always in the spotlight. Jordan was creative, reflective, and preferred quieter spaces like the studio or library. People often compared them, praising one while overlooking the other. One day, an opportunity came, a big scholarship and mentorship program. Alex thought it was meant for the star sibling, but Jordan also applied. God reminded them both through small blessings and guidance that everyone has unique gifts, and He loves both equally, no matter what others say. Though their paths look different, both twins are comfortable in their elements. When a scholarship and mentorship opportunity appears, they each pursue it with confidence, guided by the understanding that God gives unique gifts to everyone. Through small moments of clarity and grace, they are reminded that God's love is personal and intentional. In the end, both twins found success in their own ways.
Amara was born into poverty, the kind that teaches you to shrink your dreams before the world does it for you. So when she married Kanil, a poor man like herself, she believed she was choosing safety. At first he promised peace, but poverty hardened him, and slowly his frustration became anger. It began with words, sharp, heavy words. Then the words became blows. Amara learned to move quietly in her own home, to hide bruises under long sleeves, to cry without sound. Neighbors heard the noise, but silence was easier than involvement. Every day, she woke before dawn to cook and clean, while Kunal blamed the world for his failures. And every night, she lay beside a man who felt more like a threat than a husband. One afternoon, while selling small items by the roadside, someone noticed her effort. A woman offered her a small kitchen job. The pay was little, but it was honest. When Amara told her husband, he forbade it. He said working women become disobedient. But the next morning, she went anyway. The work was hard. Her body ached. But for the first time in years, she felt useful. At home, the anger worsened. The beatings grew heavier. But Amara grew quieter, not from fear, but from focus. One morning, she packed a small bag and left. No shouting. No goodbye. Freedom didn't feel like relief at first. It felt like exhaustion, but it also felt like dignity. She worked. She saved. She learned. Months turned into years. Amara started her own small food business. People trusted her because she was consistent. When Kunal returned, full of apologies and regret, Amara listened calmly. She forgave him, but she did not return. Forgiveness is not permission to suffer again. Years later, Amara stood on land she owned. When her house was completed, it wasn't grand, but it was peaceful. As the sun set, she sat on her veranda and breathed deeply. Not because life was perfect, but because it was hers. She had once been poor, once silent, but silence learned to speak. And when it did, it spoke freedom. If this story touched you in any way, please like this video so more people can find it. And subscribe for more stories about strength, survival, and second chances.
You must wear big clothes to cover yourself.
Why?
The story of my body is written in cloth and silence. It began with the hiss of a sewing machine, a sound as constant in my childhood as prayer. My mother's hands, capable and weary, were the first architects of my concealment. Her theology was stitched into every seam. A new school skirt, bought from the market, would be laid upon the cutting table like a suspect. She would take up panels of dark, heavy fabric and attach them with meticulous care, transforming any hint of contour into a shapeless drape. The world is full of wolves, NNEM, she would murmur, pins pressed between her lips. What God has given you is a test. We must not make the brothers stumble. Her words were not unkind, but they were a decree. My shape was a problem to be solved, a divine oversight that required human correction. My father's approval was the final stitch. He would appear in the doorway, a tall silhouette of authority. His eyes, the color of dark earth, would perform a swift, guilty journey from my face, over the new landscape of my hips and chest that the fabric sought to deny, and then fix on a point on the wall. A grunt of assent, a mumbled verse about modesty, and he would retreat. His averted gaze was my first lesson. My body was something to be looked away from. Something that caused a good man discomfort. So, I learned to be a ghost in my own home. I learned to walk without the natural sway my spine desired, to fold my arms across my chest, to make my physical self as small and unnoticeable as possible within the tents of my clothes. But a body is not a secret you can keep. It whispers through fabric. It announces itself in a room. My crime, my big bum, was the family truth everyone pretended not to see. The silence broke on a hot, still night when I was 16. I had crept into the kitchen for water, the fridge light a stark blue island in the dark. His voice came from the shadows, and I jumped, my heart a trapped bird. He was sitting at the table, watching me. He spoke not of my lateness, but of my effect. He said the pastor watched me during worship. He said my body spoke a language I did not control. His voice dropped, becoming strangely intimate, a confession meant for the dark. Then came his touch. His hand, large and heavy, landed on my shoulder. It did not pat or comfort. It slid, slowly, down my arm, a possessive, exploratory stroke that had nothing to do with fatherhood. The ice that shot through my veins was instant. My "Papa, please," was a gasp, a plea for the world to right itself. The reaction was volcanic. He snatched his hand back as if scalded, his face twisting from that strange, soft guilt into a mask of righteous fury. He pointed a trembling finger, his voice a whip. "See what you make me think?" The blame was transferred in an instant, hot and searing, from his hand to my soul. I was sent to my room accused of standing in my own kitchen with intent. I sat on the floor, back against the door, and the tears that came were not for the touch, but for the terrible algebra of it. My existence plus his weakness equaled my sin. The sanctity of the church offered no sanctuary. Pastor Ben's study was a small, book-lined trap. He spoke of me as a vessel, of the weak young men in the congregation, of my figure as a stumbling block. His solution was private prayer, his voice a syrupy bomb. When his hand landed on my back, it carried the same weight of ownership as my father's. It was a touch that pretended to pray while it claimed. My body reacted before my mind could. I jolted up, the chair screeching and clattering behind me. I fled, the sound of that falling chair echoing the collapse of my trust. I was not fleeing a man, I was fleeing the institution T. When I dared to speak, to name the sin that was not mine, the judgment was swift and physical. My father's slap was a punctuation mark to end all argument. The sting on my cheek was nothing compared to the finality in his eyes. My mother's weeping from the sofa was a soundtrack of surrender. The words they hurled, Jezebel, seductive spirit, were nails meant to crucify my truth to their narrative. In that moment, I was convicted. The sentence was a lifetime of hiding. The evidence was my own skin. For years, I served that sentence. I moved through the world as an apology, a walking provocation I had not uttered. Then, in the quiet rebellion of the internet, I found other testimonies. I found women with calves like continents, celebrated in art and song and strength. I saw words like ownership and reclamation. They glowed on the screen like forbidden scripture. With money from a secret job, I committed my first act of devotion. I bought a single dress. It was simple, but it was cut to fit, in a vibrant Ankara print that spoke of home without shame. I hid it under my mattress, a flat, colorful secret that felt more sacred than any hymn. The day I left for university, their final warnings followed me to the door, directions on how to remain a ghost in a new city. I nodded, wearing my uniform of concealment. But in the sterile silence of my dorm room, I performed my own ritual. I slipped the Ankara dress over my head. The fabric fell where it was meant to fall. It clung where it was meant to cling. I turned to the mirror. I did not see a temptation. I did not see a problem. I saw architecture. I saw the gentle slope of my grandmother's back, the resilient width of my mother's hips before doctrine had bent her spine. I saw a body built for carrying burdens, for carrying life, for carrying me through this world. It was strong. It was mine. And the tears that came then were the sweet, salty release of a long exile ending. The call from my mother years later was a thread from that old life. Her voice was strained with the familiar panic. A photograph from a friend's party. Too much back showing. Too much shape. People were talking. Pastor Ben was concerned. The old script was in her hands, and she began to read. "Mama," I said, my voice a calm, solid thing in my sunlit apartment. Stop. The silence on the line was profound. Into it, I laid down my new law. I told her my body was not their shame to carry, not his sermon to preach. That the management of a man's temptation was his own spiritual work, not my physical responsibility. I said this body was the harvest of our lineage, and it was not a crime. The click of the disconnected call was not an ending, but a boundary finally, firmly drawn. Now, I walk. I walk down sun-drenched streets, and my body moves with a rhythm that is entirely its own. My hips swing in a quiet, undeniable truth. I take up space. The sun feels different on your skin when you are no longer hiding from it. I catch my reflection in a shop window and I do not look away. I see a woman, oh. I give her a slow, sure nod. My body is my testament. It is fleshy and real and unerasable. It is a story of survival, written not in their ink of shame, but in the indelible language of bone and blood and resilient spirit. And from now on, the only prayer I will say over it is the one of thanks. If this story resonated with you, please let me know in the comments. Share your story. Your voice matters. Thank you for listening. If you want to support more stories like this, stories of truth and reclamation, like this video, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's next.
In Lagos, money talks, but power whispers. Choose Tab. 5 women, 5 lives. One city where luxury and wahala live side by side.
You look stunning. I know, but today isn't about looking good. It's about reminding people who I am. I built my fashion empire from nothing. In this city, respect is earned. And today, I'm hosting women who think they deserve it automatically. When you're married to a politician, people assume they know your life. I let them assume. Silence is power. I don't perform wealth. I live it. If that makes anyone uncomfortable, that's not my problem. New money announces itself. Old money waits to be noticed. People think being beautiful means life is easy. They don't see what it costs. Ladies, thank you for coming. Today is about fashion, charity, and positive energy. Positive energy is rare these days. So Zara, how many countries is your brand operating in now? 5. Expanding fast. Manufacturing locally or outsourcing? A mix of both. That question wasn't curiosity. It was a test. You always seem so composed. Politics must be stressful. Stress is unavoidable. Scandal, however, is a choice. I don't know if that was advice or a warning. So you're not married? No.
Interesting choice. Yes, choice is freedom.
Freedom is exciting until there's no one to share dinner with.
We're opening a flagship store in London next year. Retail abroad can be unforgiving. Margins are tight in that market.
I invited friends, not auditors. Presents her brand to women supporting women. Support also means honesty. Some people mistake bluntness for strength. Grace is stronger. Beautiful, powerful, successful. But this group, it's already dangerous.
5 women, 5 ambitions, and this was only the beginning. Catch you on the next episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Cure, and they agreed that Nkiru must journey into the ancient world where the source of her power was hidden. Nkiru obeyed, stepping into the ancient realm and dipping herself into its sacred waters. Instantly, her glow returned, brighter than ever before. Sensing the power she had regained, the witch screamed in terror and fled into hiding. When Nkiru returned to the village, she walked through the streets, and everyone who laid eyes on her was healed instantly. The village was restored, and light triumphed over darkness. If you enjoyed this story, like, subscribe, and follow for more.
The story of Jabez. From shadow to blessing. Long ago, in the ancient land of Judah, before kings wore crowns and before prophets thundered their words in the streets, a people lived by their names. In those days, a name was not just a sound, it was a sentence, carried memory, carried expectation, carried destiny. Among the long genealogies of Israel, names usually passed quietly from father to son, names of strength, names of victory, names that echoed honor. But hidden within those lists is a name that stops the reader cold. A name born not from celebration, but from pain. Jabez. We are told that his mother gave him this name because she bore him in sorrow. Scripture does not explain the details of her suffering. It does not tell us whether her labor nearly took her life, whether she had already lost children before him, or whether grief had settled into her heart long before his birth. But whatever the pain was, it was deep enough to shape a name. And so, when the child cried for the first time, his mother looked at him and said, "I will call him Jabez, because I bore him in pain." From the very beginning, his identity was tied to someone else's suffering. The weight of a name. Imagine growing up in a small, close-knit community where everyone knows everyone, where names are spoken daily, called across fields, shouted in homes, announced at gatherings. Every time his mother called him, she called pain. Every introduction carried the echo of sorrow. Every moment reminded him that his arrival into the world was marked by anguish. While others carried names that meant strength, joy, or victory, Jabez carried a name that whispered, "You are the reason someone suffered." We do not know how the people treated him. We do not know if he was mocked or pitied. But we do know this: words shape the soul, and names shape the story people expect you to live. Jabez grew up under a shadow not of his own making, a shadow formed by a moment he could not remember but would never escape. And yet, the Bible says something remarkable about him. It says, Jabez was more honorable than his brothers, not richer, not stronger, not louder, more honorable. Somewhere along the way, Jabez made a decision. He would not become what he was named. A quiet faith. Jabez did not rebel against God. He did not grow bitter. He did not allow the weight of his name to crush his spirit. Instead, he developed a quiet, resilient faith. Perhaps he watched others pray bold prayers while he stayed silent. Perhaps he wondered if God even noticed someone called pain. Perhaps he wrestled with the thought that suffering was all he was meant to know. But faith does not always begin with confidence. Sometimes it begins with desperation. And one day, Scripture does not tell us where or when Jabez decided to speak. He stood before the God of Israel, not with polished words, not with religious performance, but with honesty. He looked at the limits of his life. He looked at the boundaries placed on him by birth, by reputation, by expectation. And he prayed, the prayer that changed everything. Oh, that you would bless me indeed. This was not a casual request. This was not about comfort or convenience. Jabez was asking for God's deep favor, the kind that rewrites a person's story. Enlarge my territory. He was not asking merely for land. He was asking for influence, for purpose, for a life that mattered beyond survival. Let your hand be with me. He understood something many people miss. Expansion without God is destruction. If his life was going to grow, he needed God's guidance, God's strength, God's presence every step of the way. And then he spoke the words that reached into the deepest part of his identity. Keep me from harm, so that I will be free from pain. This was not just a request, it was a confrontation. Jabez placed his name before God and said, "This does not have to be my destiny." He asked God to ensure that the pain he was named for would not define his future or his legacy. 5 life-changing words. The Bible does not describe thunder. It does not record a vision. There is no dramatic scene. Simply says, "And God granted his request." 5 words. But in those 5 words, a lifetime changed. The man once defined by pain became known for honor. The one born in sorrow became a testimony of blessing. The name that marked him no longer ruled him. Jabez moved from the margins of a family record to a place remembered by generations. What Jabez teaches us. Jabez proves that your beginning does not determine your ending. He shows us that a label, no matter who gave it to you, does not have the final authority over your life. He teaches us that God is not intimidated by bold prayers, that faith does not require perfect circumstances, that even a whispered cry can redirect a destiny. Jabez lived the rest of his days not as a reminder of pain, but as evidence of grace. And his story remains in Scripture as a quiet but powerful reminder. You are not what happened to you. You are not what someone called you. You are not trapped by your past. When God blesses a life, even pain can become a testimony. If this story encouraged you, strengthened your faith, or reminded you that your past does not define you, please like this video so more people can see it. And if you want more Bible stories, faith-building messages, and reminders of God's power, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching. May your territory be enlarged, and may the hand of God be with you.
Check out their confessionals.
I'm hosting women who think they deserve it automatically.
I don't know if that was advice or a warning.
Freedom is exciting until there's no one to share dinner with. I invited friends, not auditors. Some people mistake bluntness for strength. Grace is stronger. New money announces itself. Old money waits to be noticed.
Meet the housewives.
I built my fashion empire from nothing. When you're married to a politician, people assume they know your life. I let them assume. Silence is power. I don't perform wealth. I live it.
If that makes anyone uncomfortable, that's not my problem. New money announces itself. Old money waits to be noticed. People think being beautiful means life is easy. They don't see what it costs.
Where am I? No. No.
You're awake.
What did you give me?
Nothing to harm you. You fainted.
I want to go home. How did I get here?
You said you needed help. I can help you.
I didn't ask for this.
Life doesn't always give us what we ask for, my dear. Sometimes it gives us choices.
Think about it. You don't have to decide tonight.
I hope I see a rich man this night.
Care to dance?
I can't dance well, but let's try.
Come home with me tonight.
Okay, just this once. Your house is beautiful.
One of the many I own.
You will enjoy tonight. Let me take enough. Things has to end this way. I actually got away with it. I am on a roll.
Nkiru was the keeper of the village, a young African girl whose beauty and glow brought life and balance to everyone around her. The villagers loved her, and wherever she walked, peace followed. But deep in the forest, a wicked witch grew jealous and cast a dark spell to steal Nkiru's glow. Slowly, Nkiru's light faded, her beauty dimmed, and she began to look weak and old. As her glow disappeared, sickness spread through the village, and the people began to suffer. Alarmed, the village elders gathered and searched for a cure, and they agreed that Nkiru must journey into the ancient world, where the source of her power was hidden.
Every day, we pass by people without knowing their stories. Some are smiling, some are hurting, some are carrying things they never talk about, moments that seem small but hold deep meaning. This channel exists for those moments, and this is where imagination meets emotion. Here, I tell stories inspired by real life. What you say, stories about love, struggle, faith, and hope. Some stories will comfort you, some will challenge you, and some may feel uncomfortably close because they're real. This space was created to remind you that you're not alone. Every voice matters. Every story deserves to be heard. Join me on Storytelling by Seremi as we explore life, one story at a time. Do you know Zara is living a fake life? Yes, I heard her mom say they were broke over the phone to her.
Wow. She doesn't act broke, though.
Yeah, she always looks stunning. Wow.
You bet. We will find out the truth soon enough.
Sure.
can't beacon like my problem. I must show up and show out. Only one Zara.
The money has been sent.
Thank you so much. We party tonight. My next victim is definitely at the club, all those Aza men.
Zara, the richest and hottest babe on campus, walk into class.
But you better find a way. Mommy, please.
Aisha is trying to listen to Zara's conversations.
Find a plan to pay your bills.
Ha! Did Aisha just hear that? Wahala, the real drama starts now.
How am I supposed to get this money? Scholarship didn't work. Who am I borrowing from? Nobody tells you what to do when your own mother says, figure it out.
No, that one is dangerous. But hunger is more dangerous.
Zara.
I was wondering when you'd call.
Good evening, sir.
You sound tired.
I wanted to ask if that offer you mentioned before, if it's still open.
Come tomorrow evening. We'll talk properly.
Okay. Just one meeting. I know, but I don't see how we can fix it tonight. I'm just so exhausted. I'm sorry, I'm fading.
I hope this girl shows up today. I've had my eyes on her for a long time. Everybody needs help eventually. You've grown. University life suits you.
Thank you, sir.
Drink. You look tense. It's just juice.
I don't usually.
Sir, I suddenly feel
Easy.
relaxed.
What? Did you?
In Lagos, first impressions are polite. The real opinions come later.
You've done well for yourself. I had no choice. Success is louder when it's new. Especially by women who didn't build what I built. I respect hard work. I just don't worship it. Well, we don't invest emotionally, only logically. People think being direct is rude. I think pretending is worse. Beautiful. One more. My life looks perfect on camera. Off camera, it's complicated. Not now. We'll talk later. Power comes with sacrifices. Some of them are personal. I'm considering outside investors. Then transparency matters. So does reputation. This dinner feels less like friendship and more like interrogation.
Zara, are you expanding too fast? I know what I'm doing. Confidence doesn't cancel risk.
Fair ask. I don't ask questions to embarrass people. I ask to understand.
Are you okay? I'm fine.
Some secrets don't want to stay hidden.
Okay, we need to handle this now. That dinner was a disaster. I've attended diplomatic crises calmer than that table. Too many egos, too many secrets. They came to judge me. In my face. I I don't compete. I dominate. But last night, they tried to corner me. If asking questions makes you uncomfortable, maybe you're hiding something. I didn't cause the tension. I simply didn't stop it.
I said stop calling me. Please.
My life looks beautiful online, but there are days I feel trapped.
If anyone has an issue, say it clearly. I did at dinner. Let's be mature. Maturity doesn't erase facts.
I don't chase approval. If they don't respect me, I'll remind them why they should. So this girl decided to keep me waiting. You embarrassed Zara. No, I questioned her. There's a difference. Only if you're afraid of answers. Amina is honest. But honesty without strategy is dangerous. You enjoyed watching that dinner fall apart.
I enjoy truth. It tends to reveal itself.
You think you're better than us?
No, just older and prepared.
Power isn't loud. It waits.
When the smiles fade, the truth steps forward. Catch you on the next episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
I don't like being questioned, especially by women who didn't build what I built. People think being direct is rude. I think pretending is worse. And my life looks perfect on camera. Off camera, it's complicated. Power comes with sacrifices. Some of them are personal. This dinner feels less like friendship and more like interrogation.
Fair ask. I don't ask questions to embarrass people. I ask to understand.
I've attended diplomatic crises calmer than that table. Too many egos, too many secrets. I don't compete. I dominate. But last night, they tried to corner me. If asking questions makes you uncomfortable, maybe you're hiding something. I didn't cause the tension. I simply didn't stop it. My life looks beautiful online, but there are days I feel trapped. I don't chase approval. If they don't respect me, I'll remind them why they should. Amina is honest, but honesty without strategy is dangerous. Power isn't loud. It waits. Why now, when I am about to sign the biggest deal of my life?
God, I beg, I don't want scandals.
I always knew my life wasn't perfect. I just didn't think the cracks would show this way.
Who said my name?
When whispers start following you, it means someone wants you weak. I don't guess. I verify. You can't have that much secret, and you are coming for me. When tension exists, I prefer it visible. You're asking dangerous questions. Only dangerous if answered. Power doesn't panic. It protects itself. I didn't want this public. Kemi, I am not afraid of people knowing. I think it'd be bad for both our careers. How? I was young, Kemi. I am not ashamed of you, Kemi. too wants to make me cry. An end has come to your nonsense. I've lived my life under bright lights. People think visibility means protection. It doesn't. For a long time, there has been a truth about me, about my life, that was kept private. Not because I was ashamed, but because the world doesn't know how to handle women who carry more than one identity. Zara is my mother. To be threatened by my own story. This is my truth, and I am no longer hiding it.
I'm proud of you. I just wanted us to be free.
I spent years protecting everyone else. Tonight, I protected myself. And somehow, I gained my mother back in public, not just private. Motherhood doesn't come with a manual, especially when the world is watching. I did what I thought would protect us. But Kemi taught me that truth is also protection. I knew. That's why I kept warning Amina to stay away from Zara's business. Not because Zara was wrong, but because some truths are dangerous when they're not yours to carry. I questioned systems. I questioned power. I didn't know I was walking near something so personal. Old families understand this well. Secrets aren't evil. Exposure without consent is.
When women tell their own stories, no one can use them as weapons.
Also not like this good girl they pay. I for just turned bad since school.
They said, be a good girl and life will reward you, so I obeyed. I didn't follow men, I didn't ask for favors, I didn't take shortcuts. University was where I learned discipline the hard way. My parents paid my school fees and said, everything else is on you, and that was how I learned hunger. I learned how to stretch 500 Nigerian nairas for days, how to smile while my stomach screamed, how to walk past food vendors pretending I wasn't dying inside. I worked any job I could find, cleaning, assisting, selling, tutoring, anything that would keep me afloat. I worked, I prayed, I waited, because I believed patience was an investment and suffering was temporary. On campus, I watched other girls live differently. They dressed better, ate better, moved through life with ease. Men paid their bills, opened doors, created shortcuts. I judged them silently. I told myself they were bad girls, that what they were doing was wrong, that one day reality would catch up with them. I believed my struggle would become my testimony. After graduation, I went for service thinking it was the final test before the reward. Instead, NYSC broke whatever pride I had left. Allowances delayed, hunger returned, loneliness sat with me every night in my khaki. Some days I survived on hope alone, telling myself that good girls endure, and endurance would surely pay. Service ended, and reality began. The girls I once judged were winning. Some got jobs through connections, some relocated abroad, some married into comfort, some were living lives I was told would come if I just kept being good. Nothing bad happened to them. Nothing magical happened to me either. So I came back to my parents' house, waiting, hoping, applying, praying, doubting. And for the first time, a dangerous thought crossed my mind, not that I wanted to be bad, not that I wanted to lose myself, but that maybe being good was never enough. Because the world doesn't reward goodness. It rewards access. And today, I stand here, watching the girls I judged live the life I was promised, wondering when obedience stopped being a virtue and started becoming a punishment. The village courtyard was alive with music and celebration. The sun shone brightly, reflecting off colorful fabrics and shining beads. Drums echoed through the air, punctuated by the laughter and clapping of villagers. Women danced gracefully, twirling and stomping to the rhythm of the drums, while children ran around with excitement. The bride walked carefully toward the prince, her heart a mixture of calm and anticipation. Every eye in the village was on her, every cheer and clap meant to honor her union with the young prince. It seemed like a perfect day. But among the crowd, hidden in the shadows of the cheering villagers, stood an old woman. Her face was lined with years, her eyes sharp and calculating, yet tinged with sorrow. She pushed her way through the crowd with surprising agility for her age and leaned close to the bride. Whispering into her ear, she said words so faint, so urgent, that only the bride could hear. Suddenly, the bride's face went pale. Her knees buckled. She collapsed to the ground. Gasps echoed across the courtyard. The drums stopped abruptly. The celebration froze. Villagers turned toward her, whispering and pointing. Soldiers rushed forward, ready to intervene, while the prince stepped forward, stunned and alarmed. Then the old woman's voice rang out, loud and commanding, cutting through the confusion. "No. You cannot marry the king." The crowd recoiled. The soldiers hesitated. The king himself stepped forward, eyes narrowing, his hand raised to stop his men from carrying her away. "Stop," he commanded. "Why can't she marry me?" His voice echoed through the courtyard, tense and commanding. The old woman's gaze softened as she looked at the young bride, but her words were unwavering. "You do not know what you are stepping into. Fate has been waiting for you since the day you were born." For a moment, silence fell over the courtyard. The prince knelt beside the bride, unsure of what to do. The villagers whispered among themselves, fear and confusion spreading like wildfire. The king's face paled as he tried to comprehend the meaning behind the old woman's warning. And so, the story began to unfold, the story of a child, a prophecy, and a destiny that could not be avoided. Years ago, when this child was born, the chief priest, Nko, performed a sacred ritual that would change the course of her life forever. The cowries fell in a pattern that no one could ignore. The elders held their breath as the priest studied the arrangement, his face solemn, knowing the weight of what he was about to say. "The child's life is tied to blood," Nko said, his voice heavy with caution. "If she remains in the palace, the king will die. If she returns as a woman, she will bring forbidden union." The king's face turned pale. He could barely believe what he was hearing. Fear gripped him. To protect himself and his kingdom, he made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The child was taken away from the palace, far from the lands she was born to rule. Every item connected to her birth, her cradle, her clothes, even the water she was bathed in, was removed from the palace, destroyed or hidden. The king believed that by doing this, he had avoided the prophecy. But fate cannot be erased. The child grew in a quiet, remote village. She laughed and played, learning the ways of her new home. She knew nothing of her royal blood, nothing of the destiny that hung over her life. She was loved, nurtured, and cared for, but even in the calm of her daily life, shadows of the prophecy followed her. She had dreams she could not explain, of a river, of a crown, of people she had never met. Sometimes she would wake up in a cold sweat, unsure if what she had seen was real or merely a dream. Back in the palace, the king tried to convince himself that the danger had passed. He told himself that by removing the child, the prophecy had been delayed, if not avoided entirely. But the chief priest, Nko, often reminded him that fate can be postponed, but never truly erased. One day, unknowingly, the king returned to the riverbank where the child's birth cloths had been discarded years ago. As he stepped on the wet stones, he slipped and fell. He struck his head and, in that instant, the prophecy seemed to have fulfilled itself. The child had not returned, and yet fate had claimed him. Guards rushed to his side, but there was nothing they could do. Nko simply watched, his face grave, knowing that the prophecy was one step closer to completion. Years later, the girl returned to the palace, now a young woman of extraordinary beauty and poise. She was unaware of the destiny that had followed her across the years. She walked into the courtyard, her steps graceful, her eyes calm, yet there was a spark in them that seemed almost familiar to the prince. He could not take his eyes off her, captivated by her presence. Something about her seemed both new and strangely known. The wedding day arrived, and the courtyard was filled with vibrant fabrics, flowers, and decorations. Drums played as villagers danced, celebrating what they thought was a joyous union. The bride approached the prince, her heart unaware of the storm that had been set in motion by events she could not yet comprehend. And then it happened, the old woman stepped forward. She could no longer remain silent. She leaned close to the bride and whispered the warning that would unravel the ceremony. "You cannot marry the king." The crowd froze. The soldiers moved forward to restrain her, but the king raised his hand, halting them. "Stop. Why can't she marry me?" he demanded. The old woman's gaze fell upon the bride, soft but resolute. "You do not know what you are about to step into," she said. "The prophecy has waited for you all these years. It cannot be ignored." The bride's mind raced. Memories, fragments she did not understand, began to surface, shadows of the river, whispers from her childhood, the echo of a voice she had never heard but somehow remembered. She collapsed, fainting at the center of the courtyard. The prince knelt beside her, panic written on his face. The villagers whispered in shock. The king's expression changed from confusion to realization as he began to understand the prophecy that had haunted his kingdom for years. Nkor, the chief priest, stepped forward, holding his staff. His eyes were solemn but calm. "The prophecy was never forgotten," he said. "Fate has returned, and it cannot be undone, only understood." The courtyard was silent. The drums were still. The wedding celebration had transformed into a moment of tense fear and awe. Everyone knew that some destinies cannot be delayed, they can only be faced. The bride slowly opened her eyes, her gaze meeting the prince's. In that moment, she understood that her life, and the lives of those around her, would never be the same. The old woman watched, her purpose fulfilled, while Nkor remained vigilant, knowing that the prophecy's final chapters had yet to unfold. And so, in the courtyard, the bride, the prince, the old woman, and the chief priest stood, frozen in time. Fate had returned to claim what it had long ago foretold. The story was far from over. The prophecy's next chapter was waiting to be written. The courtyard was frozen in shock, but before we reveal the truth of the prophecy, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more thrilling stories. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next.
Imagine loving someone with your whole heart and finding out they've been cheating for 3 years. She cooked for him, supported his business, even saved money with him. And all this while he was living a double life. The worst part? Everyone else knew about her. Except her. She blamed herself for getting sick, for feeling hurt. But the truth was, she had been with a stranger all along. It hurt. It shocked her. It broke her. But finding out now saved her from a life she didn't deserve. If you've ever loved deeply and been betrayed, remember this. Choosing yourself is never foolish. Your story doesn't end in heartbreak, it begins in strength.
Drain with a numb satisfaction. After all, didn't he spend her trust the same way? Lavishly, carelessly? She refused to work, claiming the world had nothing for her. Didn't he make her feel useless once? Worthless? When her anger sharpened into a point and she raised her hand, He never fought back or even flinched away, because every slap, every cruel word sounded to him like a grim reminder. You are the architect of this. You built this hell. Live in it. And he accepted it all, because the thought of letting go of her, of walking away from the last shred of them, felt infinitely worse than the pain of staying. Then, his mother came to visit. A woman woven from tradition, a woman who believed love should be a soft blanket and marriage a cradle for children. She noticed it immediately. The way her son's shoulders tightened at the sound of her wife's footsteps.
They said the drum only spoke the truth. They said no man should ever play it for pride. But Adesala believed talent made him special, and so he played. In a small village where the earth was red as rust and the palm trees whispered stories to the wind, there lived a young man named Adesala. He was known for his hands that could coax music from wood and skin as though they were extensions of his soul. When he touched a drum, children stopped running mid-chase, elders leaned closer on their walking sticks, and even the night insects seemed to pause in their symphony. His music was more than sound, it was a language, one that could make hearts soar, tears fall, or spirits dance. From festival to festival, Adesala's name traveled far beyond the village paths.